Hello everybody, it's me, GhostCritic, here with my Sunday comic book review video, and this week there were some fantastic books on my pull list, as you will no doubt have already seen from my Wednesday New Comic Book Day video, and it was a tough choice for pick of the week. I kind of changed my mind so many times between two books. I finally decided to just go for the one book that just really excited me and I just enjoyed the most. For those of you who have not seen these videos before, there isn't so much a rating system for the books that are not pick of the week, but they do kind of go in a kind of least enjoyed to the most enjoyed, I guess. And this week it really did pain me to put this particular book at the bottom of the kind of stack of stuff I enjoyed. And it wasn't so much that I didn't enjoy it, it just took me to a place where I didn't particularly want this book to go. Just before I do start this, just a spoiler warning, I will be talking about storylines, plot lines, character development, all that good stuff that was within the inside of the covers. So if you see me picking a book that you haven't read yet, either stop the video, go and read it, come back, or skip it and come back to it at a later time. I don't want to spoil anything for you because that's just the worst. Now, this book I was talking about, it is, and it's not bad by any means, it just, let me just show you. It's Kamandi Challenge issue number 5. Now, if you've been watching me over at least the last 5 months for these reviewing these books, you will remember that way back in the first issue I probably made this pick of the week, I'm sure, and I just fell in love with what was happening, and I even went on to Damien's video, Sleepy Reader 666, and made a very impassioned plea about the book, and I still feel that way about this. We've gone many weeks in me saying that this is a book that won't necessarily read very well in trade, but as single issues they are great adventure fantasy stories with like a hint of kind of sci-fi in there. But this is very much like what Kirby books were back in the 70s at DC. You could pick up any issue of Jack Kirby's run of Kamandi at any point. You didn't need to start right at the beginning, and you would have a very much an encapsulated storyline that wouldn't necessarily be a cliffhanger from the previous issue, which is what the Kamandi Challenge does, but there was a self-contained story in there, and it was fun, it was exciting, it was out there, you had the hero in danger, you got him out of it, and the book ended. That particular issue, and to some extent this is what happens here, but it's interesting. This particular issue, I'm not going to speak much about what was inside it, apart from obviously the end, which I want to make a point of, but I do just quickly, it goes from it flies all over the place. It's very fast moving, very kind of going from the whole environment of the Kamandi world. You start them off in the desert lands with their kind of what is essentially a car chase, then they're at the high seas in this kind of pirate ship, and to them spending months and months within the jungle, traversing it with this tiger called Mac, being caught by the Minotaur horde, and the end of this, which I will speak about in a minute, where he is caught and experimented on, I guess, by Dr. Vokola. But it's interesting that, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the Kirby 100th kind of celebrations, 100th birthday celebrations, and it's interesting that a lot of people have picked up on, obviously so have I, that DC are pretty much going gung-ho with this. We have coming up, I think it's August time, lots of one-shots with classic Kirby characters being published in that month. And obviously we have the Kamandi challenge here, and Marvel don't seem to be doing a great deal with it, given that he pretty much created the Marvel Universe. It's a pretty poor show from Marvel. I think they're doing like a variant cover, which is kind of like a homage to his Marvel characters, but it just, the effort there just doesn't seem to be as fully embraced as DC apparently is doing right now. With this particular title, and this is kind of like the point I want to make, it's like we're looking at, it's a Kirby kind of in the past, the Kirby then, and what people are kind of homaging now, but with that kind of modern sensibility, which unfortunately leads to kind of the root of darkness and brutality, where kind of back in the Kirby years it was, dare I say, innocent. Kirby dealt with a lot of kind of serious topics within the Kamandi universe, but again there was this sense of not naivety, because Kirby certainly knew what he was doing, but there was a kind of innocence to it all. It kind of it didn't go full on there, and this is what made me kind of balk, I guess, at the ending of this, because I felt it went too far. And as you know, if you're reading this book, the writer and creator kind of gives a cliffhanger for the next writer and creator to kind of get out of, and by the end of this issue you get it full, almost a full splash page of Kamandi with his chest ripped open, his organs are missing, and it's like, whoa, hold back a bit. This is kind of it's not, I don't want to use the word homage, it's more a tribute, because it's not a homage. They are doing a modern take on Kamandi, and I just felt Bill Willingham along with Ivan Rice, and Ivan Rice's art is very nice in here. I think he made Kamandi just that little bit too young, but it all looks gorgeous until you get to that last page, where the kind of brutality and darkness of our modern age is there flat on the page, and you can't unsee it. And I just felt you did not need to go this far with this book, and it lost a lot of the magic of Kamandi. And I do feel now, unless the next person can pick this up off the floor, so to speak, that this is now a Kamandi book in name only. It has nothing of the imagination, the creativeness, just the pure joy and entertainment that Kirby brought to his DC books, and in particular Kamandi. So as much as I enjoyed this book with my kind of modern head on, it just went that one step too far, which I'm very surprised with Bill Willingham. I don't know if he thought he was still at Vertigo and writing a title with that, but I'm sure this book will pick up again, and it will be very, very interesting to see how the next writer, which I believe is Steve Orlando, get Kamandi out of this seemingly dead-end cliffhanger. What can I say? The next book is Conan the Slayer from Dark Horse Comics. This is issue 9, and I always kind of have trouble talking about Conan the Slayer because it is what it is. We're not pushing any kind of storytelling boundaries here. it is what it is. You get the adventure, you get the mystery, you get the magic, which is usually kind of the evil variety. You get the scantily clad bodies, both male and female. The demons, the monsters, they're all there, and it's a rollicking ride, and Colin Bunn really does a good job, especially in this issue, kind of building the tension as Conan goes through this seemingly dilapidated and crumbling city, where it suddenly becomes alive, and there are people in a kind of a dreamlike state, just woken up, and making his way to this kind of, I guess, a kind of, not a cathedral, but a kind of holy place, and you get the mix of the whole snake gods in here, and there's a big demon for him to fight at the end, and the way, like I said, Colin Bunn kind of builds that tension up is really good. But there's not much more to it. But I still love Conan to bits. It's a great book. I felt in this issue, Sergio Davali, the artist, had a more of a cartoony, comic booky style that this book doesn't generally see. And some of the faces, especially on Conan, are a little bit rough to look at. But still, just one of those. I just love this book. It's full of adventure, and just enjoy the crap out of it. Now we move on to Wonder Woman from DC, issue number 23 from Greg Rucka. And I think a lot of us thought when Wonder Woman first started all those years ago, not years ago, those issues ago, with the storyline The Lies, and now we're coming to the final part of The Truth, that we were going to get a kind of definitive origin story for Wonder Woman. And do we really get that here? Or is this just another way of not retconning everything that had gone before, but trying to make sense of the contradictory nature of a lot of the origin stories out there about Wonder Woman. And I guess Rucka this time gives us the storyline and the origin that revolves around war. The Ares, the god of war, brings in the gods in again, and kind of finishes in a kind of love conquering all kind of way, which I kind of pick up at the end of talking about this book. But what we basically have is both sides of the Wonder Woman side on one side of the Themyscira Gate, and the Amazonians on the other, preparing for their own particular battles. We have the Amazonians on one side, ready to take on Phobos and Deimos, who want to open the gate because it will lead to Ares, who we saw at the end of last issue has been chained up and is unable to, live free, because we're going to get kind of, not an origin, but a kind of flashback to Ares, who, being the god of war, has to always be at war, and it becomes all-encompassing, and it turns that iteration of the god mad, and he can't stop, so he had to be captured, he had to be enslaved. But the story here is, to get to Themyscira, you will have to go via Ares and potentially set him free, which is what kind of Phobos and Deimos have been trying to do. On the other side of the Themyscira Gate, we've got Wonder Woman, who is kind of battling the lies that she's been told. And Ares explains why her mind was, I guess, wiped, because, if anyone ever managed to get to Themyscira, then obviously Ares would be free to wreak havoc and war and death on the planet. Hence Wonder Woman, who had her mind wiped because of this. She's not happy about it, obviously, but comes to terms with it by the end of the issue, as while she's kind of, why could she not have been trusted? but then obviously she's been in battles with Deimos and Phobos before, the whole kind of reading her mind stuff, and if she already knew this, then they would know this and be able to get to Ares and set him free. So there is your new kind of origin story, and why she was lied to, and why you have all these origin stories for Wonder Woman. Her believing that she's been back to Themyscira, but really she hadn't. And I guess in a way it's kind of clever. However, the end of this, the whole kind of love conquering all, Wonder Woman kind of wraps around the lasso of truth, or the perfect as it's called here, and tells Phoebus and Deimos that she loves them. And loving someone, well, you know, peace to all, love mankind, that breaks them down and wins the day. Love conquering all. A little bit hokey, maybe a little bit cliched, but there is your final Greg Rucka modern day story. We've still got his last part of the kind of past story to go. Liam Sharp's artwork in here, however, is wonderful. He has a great way of balancing the big battle scenes which fill the whole page, and then distilling it down to just the characters when Wonder Woman confronts our two demigods, so to speak, of Phobos and Deimos, and I just thought that was really well done. I'm interested, obviously, to see what Shea Fontaine does when she comes on this, but I'll be sad to see Wonder Woman Greg Rucka leave this book. Alright, let's move on to a Marvel title now, and it is X-Men Blue issue number 4, and we've got our kind of time-displaced ex-teenagers heading out to the snowy climes of Colorado as they have, or Cerebro, whatever it is now, has located another mutant. And so they set off to investigate. And while this all kind of seems to set up, and even from the cover, you think this is going to be a kind of a Wolverine storyline, perhaps. You're not far from the truth, but this is in fact the introduction of Jimmy Hudson, who is from the Marvel Ultimate Universe, who's managed to survive Secret Wars and landed on our 616 Earth. And Jimmy Hudson is Wolverine's son from the Ultimate Universe. And in the grand tradition of kind of like the 70s comic books of old, there are misunderstandings. The team have a fight with Jimmy Hudson, and then they sit down for a chat. And they realise that, you know, calm down, let's talk this through, and we kind of get this whole, he's got amnesia, he doesn't know who he's running from, he doesn't know where he's been, and just as, you know, Jean Grey saying, well, come back with us, we're going to help you, these new marauders turn up, new marauders with a little caption on, not from this universe, and you do get some characters that you know, but they're obviously very different to what we know of them. And I don't remember the new Marauders very well from the Ultimate Universe. I only read Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate X-Men, so I don't know if they were in the Ultimates or they had guest appearances, one of the short-lived kind of mini-series that the Ultimate Universe put out. But I am not aware of this team, but they're here looking for trouble, and it's just fun comic book reading and has that kind of old-fashioned feeling, but with a bright modern take on it, and again that youthful exuberance, given that these are the teenage X-Men. We have I don't know if they're filling in, we've got Lopez on art, which is not that dissimilar to I'm trying to, is it was it Molina? I think it was Molina on art. Not that dissimilar to his artwork, but at the same time, they do keep to them looking like kids, looking like teenagers, which I appreciate so much, and kind of denotes that these are young versions of the characters that we know and, for the most part, love from the present day adult versions of them. I'm so glad I picked this up. I'm so glad I stuck with it. From everywhere that I read, everything that I listen, everyone seems to be enjoying X-Men Blue the most, and I agree. Now let's talk about Valiant Comics and Man of War issue number 3 of Soldier, which is kind of the close of this arc, and it certainly goes out with a bang. Many bangs, as Arik and his group of essentially cannon fodder have taken the city, I think it's Cadmia, and we have kind of fallout from that. We've still got the soldiers of Cadmidium. That's what they're called. Cadmium. If you've read the book, you know. Pronunciation. We've got the soldiers and the president of this kind of faction still to take care of, but Arik and his group are kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, where their own forces have now decided to bombard the city with missiles, not giving Arik and the group a chance to escape or even say, stop, look, we're after the president, we can catch him. And Arik, at the end of this, kind of alludes to the fact, look, once we get the president, this war is ended. It's not just on to the next battle. And because of one of your kind of generals, you've mucked this up for us. So we kind of have this fantastic kind of movie blockbuster ride of a chase, which is so expertly laid out and drawn and coloured, as the group try and chase after the president while avoiding all these kind of missiles along the way. The victory, while kind of unintentionally, leads to Arik's promotion, which he just clearly doesn't desire, or he thinks he doesn't. I love Matt Kint's choice to kind of bring in the kind of what's left of the exo armor, the Shannara ring now, and the voice that's in his head from the ring, which is placing doubt in his mind, you know, kind of revealing Arik's kind of true warrior nature. He is at heart a warrior. He could have easily used the ring just to take his wife or his partner and escape again and find somewhere else to live, but he chose to join this kind of big army of soldiers to take over more and more land. And I just think it was a great ride, and once again we mustn't forget Giorello and Rodriguez's art and colours on this, because it's a beautiful book to look at. We had kind of a guest artist at the beginning of this with David Mack, kind of explaining the city that they're in and how it was built. And David Mack has got a very different style to that of kind of Giorello, but as a kind of flashback history lesson, it worked. It kind of differentiated it from the main action of the book. Once again, I'm so glad I picked this up, and I'm intrigued to see what the next storyline takes, given that it's called General. Are we going to see Arik continue to make his way up the ranks of this army? It still feels very Conan-esque. I feel like I've read this story before, but in a Conan environment. And there's nothing wrong with that, because, you know, I love Conan. And it's great to have this more of a kind of sci-fi feel to it this time, which again is one of the genres I adore. And that's Man of War. We stick with Matt Kint on writing duties, but head over to Dark Horse Comics and his murder mystery story, Department H. And this issue all around kind of who stays and who goes, and will any of them actually have a choice in the matter, as our group that are left from what is this underwater kind of laboratory at the bottom of the seabed. They have to escape from it, and they're kind of trying to head their way in this submersible, but there's only room for 4 of them, and there's 5 of them, and kind of once again the murder storyline kind of gets put on the back burner, sort of, as Kint has kind of added an extra layer to this storyline in the last few issues, where it's revealed that they all could be carrying a deadly virus, and the people up at the surface don't want them to come up there because obviously they'll spread it and the rest of the human race will die. So they basically can't go topside, and it's as if this underwater lab falling to pieces wasn't enough, that now they could end up all dying down there, and everything they fought for up to this moment has been a waste of time, because they're not even going to be let up to the top to live. But what we majoritarily get in here is the story of Jerome. He was kind of like the mad scientist guy who seemed to be on the biggest acid trip ever, and how he became to be part of this scientific team. And what we find out about him, he is basically kind of the creator, but the curer as well, of all these viruses and contagions. So he's basically making biological weaponry for people, for armies, for the government, topside. And Matt Kint has this way of making you kind of have conflicting ideas about how you should feel about a character, and he does it so well in this, because you have him creating these biological weapons, and you kind of like, well, this is a bad man, he shouldn't be doing this, he should be using his brilliant mind for better things. But at the same time, he's finding cure for the disease and the contagion that our group of scientists already have. But he's also that kind of socially awkward person that you kind of go, not so much because that's kind of patronising, but you really feel for his situation. His whole life is invested in his work, that conversing with other people is difficult for him, and you kind of almost feel his pain at the kind of delivery and the conversations he has to have with various people before even being let on the team. But again, Department H is one of those books that just really doesn't stick to a kind of formulaic way of telling a story, and is always adding kind of that layer upon layer, and wave upon wave of depth to this book. Did you get it? Wave upon wave, depth, Department H. It's a great book. Please, if you've not tried this out, give it a go. As we head ever closer to my pick of the week, we find at number 3 is Deadly Class, issue number 28. And in this issue, we find out how Marcus survived and came back from the dead, so to speak. And, you know, people have had a few issues that Marcus should have stayed dead, that this is kind of, well, it's Marvel. It's kind of like the Marvel trick of bringing supposedly dead characters back from the dead. But it does make sense here. We know it was Slayer who kind of gave him the sword at the end of the last volume, but these are trained assassins, and Slayer knows exactly where to jab that sword, and in this instance she was able to avoid any of the major arteries. It was poison blade, and it was all a big ploy to allow Marcus to escape this academy, this world of pain and torture and just general darkness, and go and have a happier life somewhere else with Maria. On the one condition from Slayer is that he just doesn't come back. Whatever he hears, whatever happens, don't come back. And at the start of this issue, we focus on Marcus, who kind of maybe there in body, but is his mind altogether, as we see him having a chat, a hallucinatory chat with his, I guess you could call his best friend from the old days, who is definitely dead, and that was his friend Willie. And they have this, and Willie's there as his kind of conscience, I guess. That's the voice that is there, and explaining to Marcus, look, you've made this promise, don't go back, you've got a good thing here, stay where you are. But Marcus, he's not wanting any of it, and you kind of have this to and fro. Will Marcus and Maria actually go back and save Saya, who, unknown to them, we know already, and it continues in this issue, has been kidnapped and taken back to Tokyo to her family, drugged, and you know the shame that she's brought on this family. And while Deadly Class has never kind of shied away from the violent side of this book, as Saya's mother tries to help her escape from the clutches of, I think it's her older brother Kenji, well, it doesn't go well, and Mother sees the harsh end of it. It's quite a whoa kind of moment. It's like, ouch. But such great storytelling as always from Remender. He even throws in what's going on back at the academy, and we have all the kind of school factions, and still the uneasiness between them all, and trying to keep the leader, that shabby, trying to keep them all together, though it's kind of like the woman behind the man who's really pulling the strings. But Victor here makes his play for leadership, and once again that turns to bloodshed, but in the most strange way, and from the strangest people, as they decide to take a vote over who should lead kind of all this kind of council of factions, as they come to a stalemate. One of the things I love about Deadly Class is its little touches of 80s kind of memorabilia and nostalgia, and this one was no different as the start of this issue. The kind of music of the 80s and what Marcus listens to is there, and you see his cassettes of like New Order, The Damned, OMD, and then there's this hilarious conversation that they have about The Cure, where he's having his kind of hallucinatory chat with Willie, and Willie says to Marcus, you know, look, I've tried to train you in like listening to good like hip hop music, and what are you doing? You're listening to this kind of sad English clown with low vitamin D doing a Bela Lugosi, and I just cracked up at that, because that's what The Cure was. How did they get so popular? The Cure were a phenomenal band, but still, that's what they were doing, and I just cracked up with that. And those touches give an authenticity to this book that is not greatly needed, because the book is fine on its own, but those extra touches just elevate this book to even greater heights. This book and the next two books, they were so difficult to put in a kind of order and not give it kind of a pick of the week status. So this was a good book. Okay, penultimate book, and that didn't make pick of the week, but oh, it was so close so many times. Matt Fraction, Dragotta, Anne Martin, East of West, issue number 33. What an amazing book this was. And we have the kind of culmination of what has been coming for several issues, as we have the uprising of the common people. The revolution has come, and as the Madam President Antonia's empire crumbles, we see all the citizens storming her White Tower after it had already had a craft smash into it, and it's all out battle war to bring down this particular faction of the East of West universe, and it's so well done. And at the same time we have the kind of uneasy alliance of all the other factions looking on from a distance, not necessarily wondering whether to get involved because I don't think they needed to, but just ready to take that opportunity to kind of finish Antonia off if need be. But it's just so well paced by Hickman. It's so artistically executed to precision by Dragotta and Martin. And what was even more exceptional, and again it just took it up another notch, was the juxtaposition between the start of this book and the end of this book, which was all about kind of death. And at one side, at the beginning of the book, we have the honouring of their warrior Narasimha, and we have this huge funeral pyre, and we have a conversation about why they burn their bodies, and Wolf explains in this that, you know, one, it's kind of a message to their gods to say, look, this was a good man, you need to be looking down at this guy, take him to, you know, wherever, heaven, nirvana, whatever you think comes after death, because he was a good man, he was a good warrior, he deserves whatever the afterlife brings him. But Wolf says yes, but at the same time it's also a message to our enemies. We are going to be ready for you now. This is to say, look, we're on our way. But at the same time, at the end of this book, we see the downfall and final demise of Antonia, the Madam President, as she literally comes crumbling to the ground, and surrounded by the uprising of the citizens, she is basically burnt at the stake. And there's a lovely ending to this as Wolf kind of narrates over as we see Antonia burning at the stake, where there is one other message, another reason why we burn these people, and that's because they had it coming. And there was such a weight to that at the end, because Antonia has been a bitch from the beginning, and yes, she certainly had this coming. God knows what Hickman's going to do next on this. What a fantastic, well-paced, well-told, just thorough, great ride throughout this. Those of you who dropped East of West because you thought it was slow moving, well, you're missing out now. So this is the book that beat the rest to pick of the week, although it was a tough old fight. Remender and Apina, they just continue to feed kind of like my high fantasy addiction. It's Seven to Eternity, issue number 6, and it's so difficult who is kind of worthy of more praise for this book. On the one hand, we've got Remender, who is expertly weaving this storyline and current story arc of all the characters' kind of self-doubt, their uneasiness within the actual group, and this is all being pushed forward by the villain of the piece, the Mud King, the person that they've captured, the one that they're taking to this place to cut his kind of influence on the whole planet, and his kind of magical quality of controlling all the people within this this world. Layering on the tension, which is just so palpable within this book, but allowing the group to kind of move along the storyline with the storyline, but providing backstory at the same time. It doesn't feel in any way kind of holding the story back, and it's here that we get the truth and the history of the swamps. This bad decision that they've made by taking, you know, possibly the wrong path, but maybe for the right reasons, because they don't want the Piper to be catching up with them. And apparently what's in this swamp, the Piper does not want to confront. And it's here that we see the swamp kind of basically come alive with the revengeful dead, let's put it that way. And our team have to try and escape from these kind of swamp creatures, and obviously there is history between not only the Mud King but all the other characters as well as we go through this. And the ride is just spot on. It's action, it's adventure, it's danger, it's adding again that layer upon layer of storytelling. And then, you know, Remender throws us in a little rescue from Arik, I was going to say Arik, what's his name? The main character. Oh god, that's how good this book is. I can't even remember anyone's name. Adam Asidious's daughter, Katie, who has been tracking them and following them. She makes a kind of surprise appearance and rescues them from a certain plot point. But then on the other side we've got Jerome Pina, who is doing some of his best work. I mean, I've seen some of his stuff and it's fantastic, but this is knocking it out of the ballpark. It really is. We have these fantastically detailed characters, and you know each one, who they are, and I would say their names as well, but you know who they are. He has these wonderful environments. It doesn't matter where Remender plonks his characters, Pina can draw the hell out of this. And the glorious use of colour he puts in here as well. It feels as though I'm actually watching a movie rather than reading these pages. The scenes are that fluid from panel to panel, from page to page. It's just fantastically done. And together these two are amazing. Remender's done very well in all the books he's done in picking just the right artists, just the right colorists for the tone of each of his books. And this is clearly no exception. But I love this book. It should come out more often than it should, but I'm happy to wait for the high quality that Remender and Pina are bringing to this. Goes without saying, pick it up. And that's it for me this week from a very sweaty and hot UK. I apologise for me dripping, but I hope you were satisfied with this review. Let me know what you thought of all the books that I picked up this week in the comments section down below. If you're new to my channel, hit the subscribe button. Thank you to all those people who already have. Check out Wednesday's video coming up, and also like this video, give it a big thumbs up if you were satisfied. If you weren't, just leave those buttons alone. Until next time, I'm going to go and cool down. Bye bye.